Welcome, everybody. We are back for another weekly episode of the Weekly Harvest. Frank is back with me. He took a week off. He had some craziness going on in the produce world, but we're back, and we are talking dirty this week. And what I mean by that is we're talking onions. So, Frank, it's good to see you back. I'm glad to be back on and chatting.
Yeah, it's good to be back too, bud.
So, with our onions, before we jump into it, there's 5 things that we're going to talk about. It's going to be production, appearance and quality, taste and texture, the supply chain, and the impact to the consumer. But before that, everybody usually wants to know, why do onions make you cry?
So, onions, okay, when you slice an onion or dice it or break it open, however you want to look at it, what it does is it impacts the enzymes of the onion itself. So the sulfoxides and the onion enzymes, they're emitted in the form of sulfonic acids. Okay, so what that acid does is it really kind of, it's a gas. It's a gas in a molecule that wafts into your eyes, and then it reacts with the water that's naturally covering your eyes. And what that does is it generates a sulfuric acid and then other irritating substances that can induce tears. So it doesn't only just happen with us, it also actually happens with animals too. So animals that try to eat onions underground as they're growing can actually have that same effect. So it's kind of a bizarre thing that was kind of neat to do some research on, was to find out that it also just affects animals just as much as it affects humans too. So
That would be funny to see, some random pig or something, like tears coming down the face. Some things you can do to avoid that crying, if you're in the kitchen. If you can, try to avoid breathing through your nose because it affects that sensory and then goes up. I know that's helped. And then I also know that if you sometimes it can be a pain. And this is if you're doing a large amount, is if you actually soak them in water or put them underwater, because it helps with those enzymes, kind of washes those away. That'll help as well. Or you can just suck it up and just go through it and kind of walk away. And once they subside, get back to cutting your onion. So let's jump into our 5 kind of top. Go ahead.
Two other things, kind of funny, would be, I mean, if you wanted to, you wear goggles. I mean, how many people are you going to see wearing goggles in the kitchen? But you could. The other piece is if you have a very, very sharp, very well sharpened knife, that will also help reduce those enzymes as well. So if you can, try to sharpen your knife prior to cutting an onion. You should see a drastic difference of the lack of tears generating in your eyes.
Perfect. All right, let's jump into the questions. Why do onion production move around the country throughout the year?
Yeah, the biggest component obviously is going to be temperature. As spring approaches, which we're in right now, onion production moves from colder regions like the Northwest to warmer areas such as California, New Mexico, and Mexico. These regions begin planting and harvesting earlier in the year due to milder climates. The geographical shift ensures that basically there's a continuation of supply of onions as the market region shifts. The current region that we're in right now would be California, New Mexico, and Mexico. And within there, fun little fact there is, in the Texas region, there is the 1015 variety onion. Very creative name, because you actually have to plant your seeds prior to 1015. So October 15, you should have those seeds planted in the ground in order for them to be ready for the spring production. So kind of a little fun little factor of a variety name that is used in that region.
Interesting. So what's the difference between, I don't know if a lot of people know, but there are storage crops and then there are new crops.
Yeah, so storage crops, they start off, we harvest those around the back end of the summer. So kind of around August would be a time where you are harvesting onions out of that northwest region. When you're done harvesting, you then go ahead and you put them into storage rooms. Those end up basically covering you from August all the way up until now. And then that'll go ahead and shift to the new crop. So storage crop onions, they're the biggest component here is they're harvested when fully mature. Typically, like I said, late summer or early fall. They undergo a curing process where they are dried under controlled conditions to remove the moisture from the outside layers, making the skins more of like a papery and tough type look. That curing process also helps in enhancing the shelf life of the onion, allowing them to be stored and sold throughout the winter and the spring. So, like I said, all the onions that we were used to having were storage crops. That is now starting to shift, that you will start to see inside of the grocery store. Those storage crops are generally denser, and their flavors are intensified due to the reduction in moisture.
Yeah, that's what I wanted
Now,
to jump to next was the taste and the texture, that new crop versus storage crop. So what is that big difference on flavor and quality?
well, here, before I get into taste and texture, though, the new crop onions, just so you kind of understand a little bit of the difference again. So, new crop onions, they're obviously harvested right now. They're in the springtime, but they're not subjected to extensive curing. So that is a big difference here. So what happens is they will retain more moisture and tend to have a softer, thinner skin. Again, the difference is you're not letting them cure as much as you would as a storage crop. So you don't have that outer skin that has that same kind of look that you would normally get in the wintertime. It does then make it more susceptible to bruising and also causing it to have a little bit of a shorter shelf life. But the other kicker to it is they are typically fresher and sweeter to taste. Their appearance is generally a little bit brighter and more vibrant, but again, they're a little bit different, like I said, from what you would visually see from a storage crop. But going to now your other question of the taste and texture and the differences of it, the high moisture content in new crop onions make them less pungent and give them a crisper, juicier texture. Which again, for the chefs in the home, people that are using it, it's usually a really good raw application than when you're using for like salads or garnishing. In contrast to the storage onions, which have a reduced moisture to it, they concentrate mainly on the sugars and flavors, which for a chef's side of it, it makes them more ideal for cooking as they develop more of like a rich, sweeter flavor when you caramelize them. So from a chef standpoint, I would probably assume you would like more of they both have kind of like the twofold pieces to it. You're going to have it where it's better for salads and garnishes when you're talking about new crop, but then you also going to like them when you go ahead and caramelize them when you're dealing with a storage crop.
Yeah, is that for all onion? Would that be red onion, yellow onion, white onion?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So then what does, going into the supply chain and kind of pricing, how does that arrival of these new crops affect the price of storage onions?
So what it really does is the new crop onions can relieve pressure off of the storage onion supplies, which tend to dwindle down after several months of being in the market. What this does is it helps stabilize prices by filling the potential gaps in the supply chain. However, there are transitions that can lead to temporary market fluctuations. So, for example, right now we're seeing that with red onions. You're starting to see that the market on red onions are going up just again because of the delayed in harvesting the new crops. A lot of that is due to weather conditions, oversupply sometimes from the previous season's conditions. So price will fluctuate usually when you do shift, but it really is just more Mother Nature that causes that reason.
Mm-hmm. And then now finally kind of shifting to the consumer, we talked about the storage and the new crop. But how would you even know unless it's at like a time range, like you said, like over the winter you're getting storage? But is there any other indicator or any other way to know if you're getting a storage versus a new crop?
I think you're going to look at appearance again. Like I said, you're going to have more of a harder shell, a crustier shell, so you're going to see more of a different type of color from the skin standpoint of it. That will be more of your indicator. You could also do the feel touch, and if you do feel it is kind of on the softer side, it's a good chance that it is a newer crop. But again, from a consumer standpoint, it really just varies. I mean, some prefer that robust flavor of storage onions for cooking like stews and soups. They do hold up well, and they do contribute to a big depth of flavor. While others, depending again, like I said, others may prefer more of a mild or tender new crop onion, because they're crisper texture for salads, sandwiches, and other dishes that basically you can consume raw and lightly cooked onions. So there really is, like I said, it's more of a consumer preference more so than it is which one you want more so than the other. But they each have their own different kind of components to them.
Yeah, love onions, especially last night did some caramelized onions on some beef sandwiches, and you could definitely tell. I think I may have probably gotten some new crop because as I was caramelizing, you could tell it wasn't getting as deep of a color as I normally do on the time frame, that because again I cook them exactly the same way. So that's kind of, now that you explained it a little bit more, makes more sense of potentially those sugar contents within the onions.
Yeah.
Anything else, broad overview in the produce world folks need to be aware about for this upcoming week?
You should actually probably see some really good deals going into, which, by the way, happy Mother's Day to all you mothers out there. You
Yes.
should see some really good deals at the grocery store on berries right now. There is a influx of berries out there. You'll probably start seeing them probably, less than $1 a pint, or less than $1 a pint of strawberries. So you should start to see that come around this weekend. Uh, the leafy green category is still kind of, it's in limbo. They had some cold temperatures out there in the Salinas Valley area, so you might start to see a little bit of brown, tip burn and stuff like that on a lot of your leafy greens. But berries, like I said, berries would be a really good one that you might start to see at the grocery stores at a really good price this time around.
Awesome. There you have it. Dirty Talking on Onions this week. Frank, again, it's great to have you back. And if there's anything anyone wants to know about, hear about, see about, let us know. Be happy to go into the studio, do some cutting, or even at the home kitchen and show you folks more on produce. So until next time, we'll catch you on the sunny side.